Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Yee-Haw, a Bonanza Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa, and today we are watching Season 1, Episode 9, Mr. Henry Comstock. We are officially a week and a half away from Christmas, I believe. At the time of recording this, it is Sunday, December 15th, and the countdown begins till Christmas Day. Absolutely insane. This year has gone by so quickly, and I feel like I just started the podcast, but October and November had places to be, I guess. So let's waste no time. Let's get right into today's episode. I am going to try to get at least one more podcast episode out before the year ends, which would bring us to episode 10 of season 1. So we'll have 10 episodes so far, and then we can start off with episode 11 in the new year. So I'm going to try to get episode 10 recorded tomorrow, December 16th, or Tuesday, December 17th, to get that edited and out as well. So we're going to go boom, 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 and get these last 3 episodes out before we hit the new year. Before we get into today's episode, if you are watching this show on my YouTube channel at Melty Enjoys, please like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel before you leave today. Or if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, if you could please consider leaving me a positive review on the show, I would really appreciate that. It helps boost me in the numbers and lifts me up, and I would love to hear your thoughts, and I would greatly appreciate it. So like I said, I'm trying to get these last 2 episodes recorded, so I have no new thoughts this week, and that's fine. I didn't expect them because I'm just going right now. So if you have thoughts on Mr. Henry Comstock, or if you have thoughts on the Philip Diediesheimer story, or on the episode after Mr. Henry Comstock, which I don't know what that is. I think it's The Magnificent Ada is the episode after Mr. Henry Comstock. Please feel free to send them. I will read them no matter what. So if you want to send me any thoughts, you can email me at meltyenjoys@gmail.com. So I'm going to be honest with you guys. When I was doing my initial run through of Bonanza, I skipped this episode the first time around, and I couldn't remember why. And then I sat down to watch this episode last night and take my notes, and I suddenly realized why I skipped it. I don't want to give all my thoughts now, but this is definitely one of the weaker episodes of season 1 of Bonanza. I'll just say that, and we'll dive into my thoughts as the episode progresses and as we get to the end of today's podcast, but this one is not my favorite, and I can see why I skipped it the first time around. There's only a couple episodes of Bonanza that I've gone out of my way to avoid. It's not that many, but I can think of one other, and I'm pretty sure it's another season 1 episode. But that being said, I have many thoughts to share on today's episode. Not all positive, but that's okay. There are a couple moments that I liked, but overall, this one just didn't do it for me. All right, let's read some episode details, share some behind-the-scene tidbits, and get into the Mr. Henry Comstock episode. Mr. Henry Comstock. This episode was written by David Dortort and Fred Hamilton. It was directed by John Bram. It premiered November 7th, 1959. Its special guests were Jack Carson, Richard H. Cutting, Jack Maher, Bruce Gordon, Victor Sen Young, Terrence DeMarney, John Durkis, I think how you say that, Charles Wagenheim, Joanne Sages, and Abel Fernandez. The episode description is, when threatened by a man who was fraudulently sold a part of the Ponderosa by a Henry T.P. Comstock, the Cartwrights remember when they first met the silver-tongued claim jumper and his scheme that laid the foundation of Virginia City. What a mouthful of a description. Couple fun facts on this episode. Jack Carson portrays Mr. Henry Comstock on this week's episode. Okay, so if we head on over to Jack Carson's IMDb page, he's got a couple films on here that I'm familiar with. He has Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, 1958, Arsenic and Old Lace, 1944. That's with Cary Grant. I love Cary Grant. Mildred Pierce, 1945. Romance on the High Seas, 1948. And other notable television series he appeared in would be Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Bus Stop, The Twilight Zone, Thriller, Bonanza, obviously. Date with the Angels, The Tattered Dress, The Bottom of the Bottle, It's a Great Feeling, My Dream is Yours, John Loves Mary, Always Together. I'm going to be honest, I've probably only seen maybe 4 or 5 of these things that he was in, but that is some of his work. Queen of the Mob. It's a long list. Dates back to 1937 to 1962. Unfortunately, Jack Carson did pass away pretty soon after this episode premiered. I believe he died 3 or 4 years later. Let's see. He died in 1963, so he died 4 years after he did this episode. So that's kind of sad. I believe he was in his 50s. Was he in his 50s when he died? Jack Carson. Oh my gosh, he was 52. He was so young. Wow, that is very sad. This is shortly before his death. But that's a little bit on Jack Carson. Not super familiar with him or his work, but it's always fun learning about these actors and what they were in and what made them famous. Okay, so Jack Carson is playing Henry Comstock. Henry Comstock is another real-life historical figure for this week. I guess Bonanza was like, let's get in as many real-life people into season 1 as humanly possible. But Henry Comstock, he was a Canadian miner after whom the Comstock Lode in Virginia City, Nevada was named. The Comstock Lode was the richest silver mine in American history, and Henry Comstock is credited with the first major discovery of silver ore. So it says that additional information, he accidentally discovered the Comstock Lode in June of 1859, and unfortunately, Henry Comstock killed himself in 1870, 10 years later. That's where the Comstock Lode gets his name. I'm surprised that this episode is episode 9. With all the references to the Comstock Lode. Like, I would have assumed that they would have done this episode earlier, like maybe as episode 2 or 3, but it's whatever. I don't have a high opinion of this episode, you guys. So let's go through a few more things, and then we'll get watching the episode, and you'll see why. So I checked out the photos from this episode on the box set, and they did film portions of this episode at Lake Tahoe, Nevada, at Spooner Meadow, I believe it's called. And they've got some shots of the guys standing by the lake in the opening scene of the episode where they're taking a drink of water. Very lovely outside shots. I always love it when they do on-location cinematography. It changes the entire vibe of the episode. It just makes the world feel bigger and much more lived in. They have some funny pictures of Dan Blocker sitting up against a tree. They also have some really adorable pictures from the end scene of this episode when they're at the dance. There's a really cute picture of Purnell dancing with the large lady, and they look like they're having fun. It's very cute. Adorable smiles from both Dan Blocker and Purnell. Really funny random shot of Michael Landon kissing the actress who plays Princess Sarah. I can't remember her name. Yeah, it's Michael Landon kissing Joanne Sages as Princess Sarah Tucci. Some adorable pictures of Michael Landon on his horse. And then they had a lost scenes section of photos on the box set, and I think that these were deleted scenes from the episode that just never saw the light of day. And a couple of them are just Michael Landon leaping off his horse onto one of the guys who plays a Paiute, which is hilarious. Like mid-air, like those mid-air jumps. It's so funny. And then you got a couple more shots of, the guys in the forest. I mentioned that they had some cute pictures of Dan Blocker looking over the lake, holding the rifle. Nice shot of Purnell on his horse between takes. And then also featured on the box set is they had the early concepts for the Bonanza end credits that were drawn by Joe Messerly. And the description on the box set says, in 1959, an NBC art department employee created iconic illustrations to accompany the end credits of each episode of Bonanza. Unseen in 50 years, here's a collage of preliminary drawings created especially for this anniversary celebration by that talented artist, Joseph Messerly. And it has his original sketches on here. There's not very many of them, but it really gives you a good idea into his process. I've always liked the sketchy look of the Bonanza end credits. they're not like super complex drawings, but I think they work really well. I've always really liked the aesthetic of them. They just have a couple little sketches here by Joe that just give you some nice insight into the process. Honestly, it would be so great if we could get, if we could get like a production art book of some of these old shows like Bonanza to really get into like the heads of these artists that were trying to come up for like the design and the aesthetic of the series. Like, what did the sketches for the Ponderosa look like? What did, the sketches, for the end credits like they have here, what did those look like? Did they do sketches when they were coming up with the main cast's outfits? Like, I would love to see an art production book of Bonanza. I think that'd be awesome. I would pore over that every hour of every day. One of my favorite things to do in my spare time is I love collecting the art of books. So like the art of the original series Star Trek. If I can get my hands on any of those books giving further insight to the process of how these TV shows turned out, I'm such a sucker for them. And I would just love to see Bonanza go that route too. But I don't know what rules the studio has on releasing stuff like that. But hey, a girl can dream, right? They also had some archival footage of David Dortort talking about Michael Landon. Not super notable. He just talked about how Michael Landon was just this very warm, personable guy that he could totally see portraying Little Joe. He talked a little bit about how he took Michael and his then wife out to dinner and how they chatted it up and how David knew that he wanted him as Little Joe. So it wasn't really like describing much, but still something fun to check out. All right, guys, I think we're ready to watch Mr. Henry Comstock. Let's get into it and see what this episode has in store for us today, and let's find out why I initially skipped it. Okay, guys, we are hitting play in 3, 2, 1, go. See if I can. Outside shots like this are gorgeous. And I love them because, like I said before, it just makes the world feel so much bigger than those in-studio shots. I just love on-location cinematography so much. I'm going to go to Lake Tahoe someday. I will. It's on the bucket list. It will happen. Obvious voiceover is obvious. Now the switch between in-studio shots and then on-location shots is so jarring. Because it's like all this big, wide open space, and then suddenly it's like, studio. It's very jarring. Now, what could this mean? Oh, and our intro is back. Bum ba da bum 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 bum. Hooray, we didn't skip it this week. Now, the smiles are back for this week's intro. Thank goodness. There's no smiles to be found in last week's intro. Now, the shot of the Cartwrights here looks really fakey. It's like they're imposed onto the environment. Like they propped the actors up in front of a picture and had them stand in front. It looks very, green screeny. Like that, like it just doesn't adds up. Like the depth of field looks off. Like, am I wrong? Does that look fakey? It looks very fakey to me. Maybe don't make fun of this guy as much. The music in this episode was a really odd choice too. It's very heavy on the guitar and the harmonica, and I think it made the episode come off very campy. Like I particularly did not like it because it almost didn't fit. Like I feel like the music in this scene does not fit. I did like his reaction to that. He's like, "Well, don't stop there. Keep going." Like the music here. It's so stereotypical Western. Hello, arms. There's a lot of arms here. Timber. Now the dialogue the dialogue in this scene is very cheesy and on the nose. Like this dialogue. I'm sorry. It's so cheesy. It's like a combination of the dialogue and like Lauren's line delivery, and it goes on for way too long. Like it's just very very cheesy dialogue. And they're monologuing about the trees and the value of planting a tree when you cut one down. Like it feels very aware of itself. Like, I feel like this goes on for way too long, and it's super cheeky. It's just not great dialogue. And I feel like the harmonica and the guitar is just adding another layer of cheesiness. Like that. I would cut down the trees and I would put a new one in their place. I want to ride horses now. You know, another thought I had is, did this episode really need to start with the flashback? You almost could have started the episode with the Cartwrights chopping down the trees, and then they run into Mr. Henry Comstock from there. Like, I don't think the flashback was 100% necessary for this particular story. In fact, I'm going to be honest, I'm not even really sure why it's included. Yep, that's another subplot I want to talk about, the subplot with the Paiutes and Chief Winnemucca feels really weird, especially in relation to the episode The Paiute War, in which Adam was a hostage and he was almost killed. I think that this episode just had a layer of cheesiness that I didn't quite understand. It felt like this episode was very self-aware. Maybe gimmicky is the word I'm looking for. I'm not sure. Maybe it felt like too much of a gimmick, or like it's a parody of itself. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe this episode just felt like it was a parody of Bonanza as opposed to feeling like a Bonanza episode. They all got to get a shot at them, I guess. What is this? I'm pretty sure these guys here that shoot at Henry at the beginning, that they don't appear again till the end. Like 90% sure. I did zone out watching this episode a lot. I'm not even, I'll be so transparent with you guys. What am I watching? Thank you, Haas. The mule is a better character. Did he not know that that was a gunshot? I'm not sure that I loved the Cartwrights in this episode. Like they're just I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe they came off a little pretentious and self-aware. There's a weird self-awareness aura in this episode that just made me so confused watching it. It didn't even feel like a Bonanza episode at times. I don't know. I don't love the character writing for Henry Comstock. I just found his dialogue to be so boring. Like I think it's easy to zone out during his scenes. Like I just don't find him to be that captivating of a character, and I don't think it's um what am I saying? I don't think it's Jack Carson so much as it is the writing. But I just don't find him to be that interesting of a character. Wow, $1 a day. You guys hear the music? Like the guitar strums. Like in contrast to Ben's dialogue here, where he's getting kind of intense. The music, like the harmonica and the drawn out guitar strings, it makes it come off cheesier to me. Like he's monologuing on the past. Like I feel like if the camera panned off to the side, you could show a guy playing the harmonica in like a really dramatic fashion, like in a parody film. Sorry. It's just so cheesy. It would be so much fun to write a parody of Bonanza. I'm a big, big parody film fan. Love Leslie Nielsen. Love the Naked Gun films, Top Secret. I think it would be fun to write a parody of Bonanza. I think it'd be easy. I think it'd be easy to do, but it would be so much fun. Maybe that's just my childish humor coming through. Did Lauren sing with those notes? The fool, the gold crazed fool. Am I imagining that? That's the best line in this whole episode. Best line. Like, what is this subplot? They have women there? Yeah, they're fat, but this whole subplot with the dance and the women and I feel like the subplot made the rest of this episode suffer. Like it's like they almost introduced the subplot because the main plot of the episode wasn't interesting enough. And the subplot is more interesting than the main plot, but I also think it brings down the main plot, if that makes sense. What was that dialogue? She was beautiful, as was your mother, as was Adam's. And they left me sons, boy. They left me sons. It's not good dialogue. This whole episode feels like it was filmed at the very beginning of the series. Like it almost doesn't match up with where we're at in Bonanza so far. But why? Honestly, with where this episode falls in the season, especially in light of the Paiute War, this feels weird. Like I don't even think that little Joe would do something that stupid. I mean, he makes a lot of stupid decisions in the series that add up with his character, but this, what he does here, I just don't know. I don't think it fits with his character, especially in relation to the previous episode. Shout out to that outside shot though. Wow. It's absolutely stunning. I gotta tell you, outside cinematography makes such a huge difference. It's so beautiful. And then the in-studio shots, which honestly still look good, but nothing beats the real deal. Glyn, 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 glyn. In an earlier line, Ben says, "Don't stir up the Paiutes," because I think that was a callback. Like in the beginning, he said a line that called back to the Paiute War. I don't know. It's just not. It's just not a great continuation. Because I don't feel like Joe would be that stupid. Like, be like, "Oh my gosh, like they almost killed my brother," and there's like just a lot of tension there in general. So I don't want to mess with that. Like, I feel like Joe's smarter than that. But again, it's so early in the season. I'm willing to overlook it. Oh God. Just the dialogue. It's just not great. Oh my goodness. I love this show to death. But every now and then you're just going to get an episode that you're like, oof, didn't quite reach your full potential here. And that's okay, because you know what? When you have 14 seasons of a show and 34 episodes in a season, not every episode is going to be this grand, perfect piece of art. You're going to have a couple bad eggs here and there, and that's okay. Okay. We already dealt with this with Annie O'Toole. Ooh, that crack of the stick. That was so satisfying to listen to. Oh, just you wait. Meanwhile, Haas. Like this music here. Now, this week, Chief Winnemucca is being played by Bruce Gordon instead of Anthony Caruso. Also, another interesting little fact, Ben acquired Joe's horse Cochise from Chief Winnemucca by trading a gun for the horse. Joe's like, I was spying on your daughter when she was taking a bath, and I thought that she'd look good in this fabric. Now, this poor actress, she didn't have a single line of dialogue in this episode. She just stood and smiled. Same, valid reaction. I've never had rattlesnake, though. Is it good? Gosh, Michael Landon, he's so young here. I like he's very young for, maybe like the first 6 seasons, but here he just seems like such a baby to me. What was he, like 20 something here, like early 20s, I believe, 22, 21. Like, it's clear that she understands him, but she doesn't say anything back. Also, Joe, that's a terrible plan. I'm sorry, I love you so much, but that's just an awful plan. He clearly did not think this through. Now, this is probably the most entertaining scene in this whole episode. Like, what takes place at the dance is probably the most entertaining. But for an episode being about Mr. Henry Comstock, it does bring the episode down. Like, it just doesn't add much to the overall plot. It just felt like it was added in because they needed to make the episode more interesting somehow. Because Mr. Henry Comstock is not really doing it. He's not really carrying much of the episode. Like, why are the big women such a prominent joking point in this episode? Just like, I just don't understand. Exactly. That's a stupid decision, even for little Joe. It's like, hey, I only brought the Paiute chief's daughter here. Hey, remember how we had all of this conflict a couple weeks ago with the Paiutes and the other tribes, and then Wilson causing trouble? I brought Winnemucca's daughter here because that seems like a good plan. It's so cheesy. Oh my gosh. It's so cheesy. It just, even the way it's shot. Oh man, okay. The behind the scenes photos on the box set of this scene are so cute though, because everybody's got like big smiles on their faces. It's just fun to watch other human beings have fun and be happy. Like, what? I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. It would be so much fun to attend a dance like this. And they all look like they're having a blast. What? Be so much fun to attend a barn dance. Also, Dan Blocker is being so cute here. You have to love him. He's just got the cutest smile on his face. Get out of here, please. Agree. That's wild. And of course, parents are here to save the day. Joe. Again, this is so weird. And once again, perfect eye roll from Adam. But the Bayou subplot, I just what? The dancing is the cutest part of this episode and the most entertaining and probably the best scene. Look how cute Pernell Roberts and Dan Blocker are being. Guess the dance is over then. Oh, that's it. That's the episode. I love how the Cartwrights just are watching this in the background. And supposedly all the women have disappeared from that dance. And these guys are back. At the very end. Thanks, Ben. Good, we couldn't figure that out on our own. Do you guys see what I mean about the dialogue, though? It's just not great. Is that supposed to be the theme of the episode? What gold does to men? Greed? What greed does to men? Bit of a loose theme. Oh my gosh, you know what this feels like? This episode feels like an educational special that I would have had to watch for school when I was a kid. That's kind of what it feels like. Like an episode of Liberty Kids. That cartoon from like 2005 covers historical figures. It kind of feels like that. It's like, remember the time we came across Henry Comstock? We sure did learn a big lesson that day. It's like, that's the vibe this episode is giving. Like one of those kids' specials. It's so cheesy. Well, at least they gave him money because he got swindled. But did we really need this to be a flashback? The end. All right. Time for thoughts. Time for thoughts. Okay, let's start with a couple things. I think that this is the weakest episode of Bonanza Season 1 so far. Without a doubt. Let's discuss a couple things. Okay, first of all, no major overarching themes that I noticed anyway. I mean, at the end of the episode, Ben's like, greed does things to people, gold does things to people. It was just very loose. Definitely not what I took away from the episode, but it seems like that was the theme of the overarching story, although I don't feel like it came across that way. As far as the characters go, nobody really stood out to me in this episode. Jack Carson is fine at best. I don't think it's his fault, but I think he was just playing a really boring character that the script just didn't give him that much to do. But I think he did the best with what he was given. But he just didn't stand out that much to me. It just didn't feel like the script knew what to do with him, and he felt very secondary, even to the plot of Little Joe taking the Paiute princess to the dance. Like, even as I'm saying it, like, coming out of my mouth, it just sounds so silly. So Jack Carson, nothing against him. The script just did not do him justice at all. The girl, the young lady who played the Paiute princess, didn't have any dialogue. She just stood there and looked pretty. And Bruce Gordon, who played Chief Munamaka, was barely in it. I don't know. No notable performances in this one. Best scene in the episode by far is at the dance for the brief moments that Hoss and Adam are dancing with the big women. They were just being really cute and adorable, and they looked like they were having fun. And I don't know about you guys, but I think people like watching other people have fun. And those behind the scenes photos of Purnell and Dan smiling like really warmed my heart. They were very cute. The outside shots in this episode, the cinematography was gorgeous. No complaints there. I think when you shoot on location, like I said, it really changes the vibe of your episode. And I think every single shot that was spent outside was 10 out of 10. Gorgeous. No complaints there. Best line in the episode was definitely from Hoss when he says that Mr. Henry Comstock is like a four-legged animal. He's like a jackass. I thought that was a good joke. That made me laugh. My least favorite moment in this episode was literally any scene with Henry Comstock. And I know that sounds like a mean thing to say, but I just did not care about his character at all. I thought he was boring. I didn't think he was entertaining. I think his dialogue was so confusing. Like, every time he opens his mouth, I'm like, what are you saying here? Like, whenever a character speaks, it should be moving the story forward in some way. And every time he opened his mouth, it was just to add stupid commentary to a situation. And I'm like, why should I care about you? like I feel like the episode didn't even give me a reason to care. I feel like they could have made more of a connective plot. Like, maybe he swindled Ben's friend out of his riches, and then Ben gets really angry and you have a conflict there, but they didn't really give him a character, so I found his scenes boring and unentertaining. Weirdly, I did not like the music in this episode, which is strange because normally I really like David Rose's compositions in the episodes. Like, they're normally very beautiful and they have motifs and they lift up the episodes. But here, the music was just so stereotypical Western. It's like, the long guitar riffs and the harmonica, and I feel like it just added this very cheesy, tropey element to the episode. Like, it kind of made the script in this episode already felt very cheesy and gimmicky, and I feel like the music added to that feeling of being cheesy and gimmicky. And I don't think it was very well done. I found the music to be very intrusive in some scenes. Like, I'm thinking of that one moment where Ben is talking to Henry in their living room, and he's like, if you start panning for gold on the Ponderosa, I'm going to shoot you. And then you have this guitar riff and this harmonica that just doesn't match what Ben is telling Henry. So, not a really big fan of that. I don't know. I don't really have too many more thoughts on this episode. I just thought it was such a weak script. It felt so self-aware, like the episode was aware it was a Western Bonanza episode, and like I said, it felt like a parody. Honestly, I think this episode felt like it was filmed immediately after the pilot. It felt like a backtrack of the characters, honestly, like maybe closer to their Rose for Lotta versions, but without the aggression. It just had more cheese. Because up until this point, I have personally felt like the episodes have slowly been getting better and better. But this particular episode felt like it stilted all of the growth so far, and it backtracked. I think the characters came off very silly, and I didn't really find anything engaging about it. Would you guys agree? Would you agree that this is the weakest episode so far? It felt like the episode for Mr. Henry Comstock wasn't that interested in Mr. Henry Comstock as a character, and it kind of comes off that way throughout. But let me know your thoughts, guys. Do you think that this is the weakest episode? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? This is going to be my least favorite episode of the season, but that's okay. Like I said, not every episode's going to be a banger. You're going to have your weak ones, but some of the weaker episodes of Bonanza are better than a lot of what I see on television today. So it was a hoot. We can say that. Drop a comment. Please let me know your thoughts. If you have any particular thoughts on this episode, please feel free to email me at meltyandjoys@gmail.com, and I would love to read your thoughts. Like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube, Or please leave me a positive review on Apple Podcasts, even if you're watching on YouTube and you don't listen on Apple. Every review helps, and I would just love to hear what you guys think of the show. Please join me next time when we watch Season 1, Episode 10, The Magnificent Ada. I'm going to try to get that recorded on Tuesday at the latest of this week. But until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on this episode. And I will see you in the next episode of Yee-Haw, a Bonanza Podcast. Have a wonderful day, everybody.